Yo, have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome, everyone, to the L7C podcast, My Hero Academia edition. Today, we have our monthly case study for My Hero Academia. We have our My Hero Academia enthusiast with us, Andrea Alanis. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm doing great, Martin. How are you?
I am doing good. It feels like, well, it was just a month ago, but it does feel longer since last month was Women's History Month, and we had that really big episode on the women of My Hero Academia. It feels like it was forever ago.
I know, and it probably was close to almost exactly a month ago, but it does feel like a lifetime ago.
So with this one, it is more light. I guess the other one was lighthearted, but it was serious at the same time. But this one is more lighthearted, more outside of the box. I think we're going to be like the first people doing this, actually. We are going to be talking about everyone's favorite class, Class 1A. And we are going to be talking about if they could not be heroes, what jobs would they have in the real world? And Andrew, when you were picking like just jobs per se, did you put their quirks into mind, their personalities? What did you think when you were picking their jobs?
Okay, so I did both of those things. I considered their personality first because when you think about Class 1A, at least specifically for me, I feel like their quirks somewhat integrate into and influence their personalities, particularly like a character like Bakugo. So I took into account their personalities, their quirks, as well as just any kind of skills we've seen them put forth so far, some of which are somewhat tied to their quirks. Others have just kind of come about. I was also just trying to think about it in a frame of mind of like, if they hadn't, gotten into UA and, not been able to study and train to be a hero, what would have been their backup plan that they would have enjoyed, not necessarily be like, oh, I have to do something, so this is what I'm going to do, Like I wanted it to be something that I could see them doing and potentially having some sort of fulfillment in, or at least like for.
Yeah, I think honestly, I felt like I was thinking more of their quirk than their personality. So just a little bit opposite of you. And then like moments in the shows throughout the 5 seasons. And for me personally, there was no job like off limits. So
for sure. No, I have some random stuff on mine. Like honestly, I'm kind of surprised at myself for the, thinking for some of these. I'm like, where did that come from? But I don't know. It just felt right. So we're going with it. This is my pick, lighthearted, my typical theme.
Well, the way we're going to be doing is we're just going to go through the Class 1A seat order. We're just going to go our way down, give which job we think the person would have, talk about a little bit, and then continue on. So let's start off with Mr. Can't Stop Twinkling. Yuga, first name. What job do you have for him?
For Aoyama, the first thing that came to mind was like a designer because he has a very specific style. I know we don't really see him wear like a lot of different outfits, but whatever he wears, he can't stop twinkling. He can't stop trying to steal the spotlight. So I figured he had to be in a fashion realm or at least some sort of like, I don't know. I basically also picked a secondary option for every character except one. And for some reason, I felt like Oyama could be an art critic. He would probably compare every piece to himself, but he's still critiquing the art. So that's what I picked for him.
Okay. I will say for me too, there's a lot of these jobs in one way that a lot of these people can work together. And I try to do that as well since Class 1A works together. So there is going to be some time with a lot of these people, and it actually works well with the seating. So Ayama, I actually had with the twinkling and his flamboyism and all of that, I have him down as a DJ nightclub owner.
Okay. Flashy. Okay.
Flashy too. And then with obviously like his laser quirk and reflecting that, like trying to package that into like the lights that you see at clubs and all of that. And he can have one of the flashiest nightclubs in all of My Hero Academia world. And it can be, if they're not heroes, they're still heroes, where the heroes come and hang out. And I feel like that would be a great job for him, especially having a chain of hero nightclubs across the country.
Right. That would be cool. I had not considered that, but that's a good one. That's a really good one.
Did you have a backup job for him too? No, you said the art and
yeah, the art critic was his backup job. My first instinct was a designer. Yeah.
Going then to Mina, then I'll go for
Mina
was a no-brainer. Dance instructor, owning a dance studio. Hence why just it actually worked with the two sitting 1 and 2, that they could potentially work together, where like Mina is having her dance studio and all that, and then her people who she's training performs at Ayama's nightclubs. Like some chemistry there, but she was a no-brainer.
Yeah, for sure. Professional dancer. Her backup will tie into another characters, but her backup for me was a hype woman. So her as a hype woman would also work for Ayama's nightclub, bringing the people in, making sure the energy's up. Yeah, no, that's what I had for Mina. She was a no-brainer.
What did you have for Miss Sue, Miss Froppy, since we respect Froppy on this channel?
Yes, little Miss Froppy. So it's a little on the nose, but I felt like, her internship kind of working alongside the Coast Guard would have been a really good fit for her if she, couldn't be like a hero. Plus, I felt like with her quirk, I also tried to avoid kind of like these characters using their quirks because technically they're not allowed to without a license. But since hers is like her physical body, being and working near or in large bodies of water would be perfect for her. So that's why I went with, she'd be in the Navy or Coast Guard. Or I also picked marine biologist because she's smart. She's super smart. So I felt like if she wanted to be more studious versus on the ground, she'd be a marine biologist.
Okay. I mean, for me, you already said I only had one for her, and it was the one that made the most sense for me, and I had marine biologist. That was the only one I had for Miss Froppy.
She's the best. I also put as a side note, if they still had the Olympics, she would definitely be an Olympic swimmer.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, like she was one of the people, it was the easy. I was just like, yeah, marine biologist, right on. And then just keep moving on with that. So then we got the class representative, Ida. I mean, for me personally, he follows in his brother's footsteps and becomes a police officer.
Right. So I picked initially like public servant. I wasn't sure exactly if police officer would fit because his thinking is so black and white. And I feel like he has a hard time confronting like shades of gray. And I feel like law enforcement, as an officer, it is more black and white. I feel like the thinking is that way, but being flexible in your thinking is important as well. I don't know a proper job title, but my first instinct for him was going to be like an ethics specialist, like somebody who comes and like audits and, make sure that everybody's doing exactly what they should be doing when they're supposed to be doing it. Or I also said he might be a politician, which is weird because he doesn't do nonsense. He doesn't do lying. He doesn't abide by any of that. But I feel like that could resonate with people, at least at the local level. So I feel like he could end up being like a mayor or representative or something.
No, I hear you. I do hear you. It was just with me, like he wants to follow his brother's footsteps. Like we still keep the story in perspective. If he couldn't be like he's named after like his brother, like his superhero stuff and all that jazz. So it was just like I feel like he joined the force, live in his brother's like footsteps, rise up, and then through the force he would learn like more gray, depending on what's going on in the My Hero Academia world. I don't know if there's any room for gray when All for One's just blowing everything up, but
that's true.
In a general life sense, I do understand that sentiment. And then we go to the main female lead of the show, Uraraka. What do you have for our number 2 strongest teenage girl that we had ranked last month?
So Miss Ochako, I think, would have taken over her dad's business. I think she would have been a businesswoman. Also, as a second option, I feel like because in business, particularly women in business, you kind of have to be a little more assertive to be taken seriously. I feel like she somehow would have found her way into the world of like self-defense, martial arts anyway. So I put as a side job, she'd probably be like a self-defense coach or like a, what's that word I'm looking for? Like be a kickboxing instructor or something like that.
Okay. I actually had, well, I think 2 of them say I have like 4 jobs listed potentially for Uraraka. One of them was a women's self-defense coach. I think
nice.
That was prevalent. That was the third one I had listed. The first 2 and the last one were more for her quirk and for her like personality. I had her running a hot air balloon type thing. With her
quirk. That's a great idea. Oh my gosh.
With her quirk and gravity. And the reason I said my second one, because I had balloon company. So you can basically do hot air balloon and balloon company, having that thing helping with those. And then she's putting a smile on people's faces because she is a bubbly, happy person. And then more with her fourth, and my fourth option for her, especially with like her control of gravity and things that could help. I had her working at NASA.
Right.
Being an aerospace engineer and like all that and the gravity. I had her there.
That's fair. I don't know. Maybe I'm just forgetting where she ranked before the midterms and all that stuff. I'm pretty sure she was in the upper half. When I think of Uraraka, I don't necessarily automatically think like aerospace engineer, but that is a really good application of her quirk though. It would save the government a lot of money on equipment and trying to create zero gravity situations and get, astronauts and all that stuff used to it. Plus, she would also have a leg up on the astronauts because she would have somewhat of a tolerance. Started, at least. We know it's not perfect, as we've seen, but that's a really, really good one.
To look out for Uraraka. I also think this next one is pretty on
the nose.
Yeah, Ojiro, what do you have for him?
He's one of the ones I could only come up with one thing, like for sure, and it was just a martial arts,
Instructor.
Teacher. Just he would love it. He'd be good at it. I don't mean to say it like it's a bad thing. It's just that's what he's known for. That's what he does. He's also like known as the quote unquote normal character. So it's like he's not going to probably be anything flashy if he's not going to be a hero.
Yeah, I had martial arts / karate instructor, and just comparing, I see him in the same, well, not the same because this person got more respect in their series, but Ojiro is kind of like Tien from Dragon Ball, who Tien also runs now a martial arts like instructing thing because obviously he's not saving the universe all like that anymore with Goku and Vegeta, so he's out of school. So Ojiro's not saving. He's not prevalent like the 3 other males at the bottom we'll talk to about later, but he can run a school and teach people. So let's go to Mr. Denki.
Denki Kaminari.
Right. I had a couple of things. I'm also trying to foreshadow, hopefully, them getting better. This is obviously when they graduate. So max potential, if he gets his grades in order, electrical engineer is easy. I also had, just because of the times we live in and these things are so prevalent, I had him being like the leading expert in making new hero portable batteries that they could take on missions and like portable chargers for their phones, because phones die still in the My Hero Academia world. So if you have someone who's able to
they could call it a pocket Denki or a pocket Kaminari.
Basically, that you're having that charge, that walkie-talkies, all of that jazz. And I feel like that'd be a very great thing for him to get in with his abilities.
That's cool. So I went totally with personality for my picks. The first thing I thought of was, unfortunately, that like, what's it called? Hot wiring the car, where he's, got the plugs between his teeth. So I went with race car driver for my first pick, just because he seems to be like a little wild, a little out there, adventurous. And my second pick for him was actually like a YouTuber or a practical joker.
Okay. Let's go then to Mr. Red Rocket, Red Reich, Hiroshima. What do you have for him?
So I actually pegged him as being like a PE coach or like a motivational speaker. I don't know what it is. It's just like he hasn't had any like big like monologue moments like Midoriya, but I feel like he's got the concept of talk no jutsu down. He just needs to be in the right spaces to do it. And I feel like, he'd be like one of those coaches for those kids that need somebody, or just in general, that would just, give all the advice, be uber supportive, go the extra mile. And he'd be very, he'd still be very passionate about teaching. What is it? What is his go-to? About manliness. That's what it is. Yeah. So I put him as a PE coach or motivational speaker.
I like those. I think I only had one for him, just again, I was more quirk for him. I guess in the grand scheme of like old school thinking, this job is considered quote unquote more manly from the old days. Construction worker for Hiroshima. I feel like that one would fit him. He's down there working in the trenches like he does. And I feel like that motivation would help too with the hard-headed construction workers, getting them back on track, since he has expert experience doing that in the show with
for
Mr.
sure.
Bakugo. Next one is Koda. Koda was simple for me. Zoologist, easy.
Same. That was my number one. Zoologist off the top. I had a slight thought about veterinarian, and I was like, I don't think Koda would be okay with putting those animals down. No way. So zoologist for sure. I also had that he would maybe own an animal sanctuary.
Okay. Those are really good ones as well. Next up, we got Mr. the Sweets Hero, Sugar Man. What do you have for him?
Again, I feel like this one was kind of like a little obvious, at least from the show, is I think he'd be a baker. It's kind of his baking skills are a byproduct of his needing sugar to like enhance his quirk or use his quirk. And I mean, he's gotten really skilled at it when they were showing off the rooms. Like he pulled out a cake and the girls just absolutely loved it. And so we still see him bring out treats every now and again. So I just feel like if he wasn't going to be a hero, he would be a baker, or I think he would be a personal trainer. He would still be using kind of like the byproducts of his quirk, because he is still really strong. He just, needs extra sugar. So instead of, pre-workout, getting the caffeine, he'll just eat like a whole cake.
Yep. No, I had bake too. I did take it a step further, because I'm thinking like hopefully it ties all into my stuff when we get to the end, but he would be a baker, and then he'd evolve, and then he'd be the host of like the My Hero Academia version of British Bake Off. So then he would be the host, and then you would have, and it also works for like the heroes wanting to get better publicity, coming to his show, cooking, seeing them in a different light. So I had him being the host of the My Hero Academia Bake Off.
That's awesome. The great My Hero Bake Off. That's great.
That is what I had. Next, we have Mezzo, Mr. Tentacles in All. What do you got for him?
So Shoji was actually a little hard for me. What I finally kind of arrived at was he's very, very giving, very self-sacrificing. He doesn't get much of the spotlight. He doesn't care. He's okay with being in the background and helping in any way that he can. So the two things that I kind of plucked out for him is I felt like he would be a good bodyguard. He is willing to put his life on the line for others, protect others. Also with, just his extra appendages, he could probably hear or spot a threat sooner than others. So he would be very well suited for being a bodyguard, as well as I think he would be a really, really good social worker.
Okay. For Mr. Hero Tentacle, I thought of his quirk mostly. I thought of his personality. I had two jobs actually down for him. One, I had him, since they're not heroes and there's villains still out here, I had him creating the My Hero Academia's version of like the ring alarm and stuff like really? That based off his quirk, because his quirk is so good that he's able to even like notice when Miss Invisible Toru's walking around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I picked that, and then like him somehow using his quirk like to help with that, so that normal people would have ways to alert the pro heroes without just calling like it'd be linked to like whoever's hero agency and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The other one I had was a ultrasonographer. I did have that one for him as well, just because of his ability with sound and like his senses and all of that. So those are what I had for him.
Oh, so you mean like a medical sonographer, like doing ultrasounds and stuff?
Yep.
Interesting. Fun fact, that's what my dad does.
Let's see, well, and then with his tech, he'd be able to help you out. Let's go to Miss Jiro. I mean, she's already been proven. She had
her whole episode, her whole little mini arc to herself about this.
Jiro would be the Ariana Grande of My Hero Academia, just being able to play a guitar. That is what I had her as, a musician, and that was it.
I would put her more Billie Eilish vibes, but I also put her as a secondary, kind of like producing music instead of being like a vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
I also kind of made a note that Mina would probably be her hype woman when she goes to perform or like is putting together a show of all the songs that she's produced, like in a DJ fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the only two that I kind of like tied together, which I thought was fun.
And then next we have Mr. Sero. What did you have for him?
Okay, so Sarah was actually kind of hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of went back to the whole, again, like everybody's room showing off, and everybody was very surprised by his like decorative skills, and he utilizes his tape elbows to make different shapes and things like that. So I was wondering if he wouldn't want or be good at being an interior designer or an architect of some sort.
Okay. I mostly thought of his quirk, obviously, with tape and making super strong tape and all of that jazz. So, and then with his decorative stuff too, and tying into some other stuff later, I have him making, obviously like a tape company, but more school supplies for the kids.
Aww.
And then the tape going up from each level, so he can make school supplies for kids, or he can mass produce this tape into a company that then EDA police officers using to be able to restrain lower level mid-tier villains, so that then, as we've talked about a couple months ago on February's one, that the police actually have more abilities.
Right. That's good. That's a good one.
And then let us know. We got Tokiyami, Mr. Dark Shadow.
Oh gosh.
Do you want me to go first?
Yes, please. I struggled so hard.
I did too. Then I really had to think about every job on planet Earth. I had to think about how he prefers the night, how he's calm, collective, how he'd be able to help in this emergency. I have Mr. Dark Shadow himself being a night air traffic controller for the airports.
Genius. Oh my God, that's great.
So then if an airplane does go away, at this point, his Dark Shadow is big enough that he'd be able to control, coming up there, help himself, bring it down, and him at night it works out best for him, and he flies, obviously, so, and he likes the sky. So night air traffic control.
Wow. That's amazing. Gold star. Oh my God. Okay. So Tokoyami was one, again, like I already said, I struggled. And I basically feel like I pulled things out of the air, but it made sense to me in the moment. My number one thing I picked is that he would probably be a poet. He has this very specific way of speaking and expressing himself that seems kind of, I don't want to say ethereal because that's not exactly the tone we're going for, but I just felt like he might be able to, with his dark shadow and kind of having to confront all that suppressed rage and feeling out of control, that he would have a lot of material to create and write poetry with, especially since he is, musically inclined. He did play the bass, was it? Or did he play the guitar in the band with Jiro?
I could look if it gives me that quick.
I was going to say, I don't remember what it was specifically, but he already kind of seems to have a little bit of an artistic like edge to him. And so I felt like, you know what? I'll give it to him. I'll let him be a poet. And then my backup was actually a therapist. I felt like, he might potentially need to go to therapy to help gain control over Dark Shadow, to kind of synergize the energies between the two of them. And getting through that, I felt like, his calm, collective demeanor, his ability to primarily listen, but when he does speak, it's impactful. I felt like he probably would make a good therapist. I don't know if he'd necessarily pick that for himself, but I feel like he could do it. I could see it.
Okay. Next up, he needs no introduction. He is Andrea's, one of her top two favorites, Mr. Shoto Todoroki. What do you have for your guy?
So, ironically, Todoroki is the other one that I couldn't really come up with a backup for, and a primary one for. And the backup one I have for him is also extremely shaky. So basically my backup for him was that I thought he would be able or would enjoy potentially like hosting support groups for a myriad of things of, children who grew up in abusive households, parents who are mentally ill, like all of that type of stuff that he's experienced and potentially helped kind of get through, and he would be helping others kind of just have a platform to talk about it and not feel pressure. I felt like that would be good for him. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that I think he would be a therapist or he should be a therapist, if that makes sense. I really couldn't pinpoint something in his personality or that he'd shown a lot of passion for so far in the show that I'd be like, yeah, for sure. If he, couldn't use his quirk, he had to have a normal job, this is what he would do. And I'm kind of mad at myself for that because he is my favorite and I couldn't figure something out. As a caveat, though, I did put that he'd probably be scouted as a model. So.
Well, that's always a good backup for most. So for Shoto, I actually only had one job for him. I do like the support things if he was more talkative like that. Like,
right.
If he was able to express himself like that, I think that'd be really, really good on that front. But he's just not at this point. But I do have him helping people in a way. I have him being obviously the lead My Hero Academia expert in HVAC. Since hot and cold, he'd be able to put air conditionings and heaters and people in low. And then he'd more focus on the low income broken down homes, because that obviously wasn't low income, but he wasn't a broken down home. So he would want to focus on getting those people heat and cooling, because that'd be another worry that they don't have to worry about. And then also with that too, you can go from him being the leader of HVACs to him being the leader of thermal weatherware. So like when the heroes have to go to Antarctica, he can like, oh, well, it's going to be this cold here. My ice does this. So you need your thing to be here. Or if they're going to the hottest place on Earth and like the deserts, oh, you need your thing to be cool there. So I think with his expertise in that, even if you can't use his quirk or not, he's still an expert in hot and cold. But I think those two jobs would best fit him, that he's helping people, but he doesn't have to directly be in the like talking to masses of people because he's not ready for that.
That's fair. With the support groups, I do just want to say more so that with support groups, you kind of more facilitate. You don't necessarily do a lot of the talking. And most in the support groups I've experienced, you kind of just more so touch on your own experiences. And it seems so far that he's willing to kind of discuss those things with Midoriya a little bit, kind of peeking into it with his sister. And I mean, Bakugo overheard him twice. So it's like, I feel like hosting a support group would fit better than, like I said, an actual therapist, because he is so non-talkative, assertive is not the right word. But he just doesn't initiate a lot of verbal communication and contact. So that would, push him to grow. But the HVAC stuff, you're clever. You're getting real clever with these. I'm very interested to see what you have left.
Well, next we have Toru Miss Invisible herself. Honestly, she was actually one that I was struggling a bit, but I have her. This is actually one of my first people going in this way. I have her going into the military, being a government spy, obviously, because she is invisible.
Right. So I kind of had that same thought that she would be like like a private investigator or a spy. Mm-hmm. But then I felt like that didn't quite fit with her personality. Like, yeah, she wants to help people. She wants to keep people safe, but she's just so bubbly and talkative. And I feel like that doesn't quite coexist with spy, at least in my mind. And I could be completely wrong. So I actually went more kind of secret shopper, that she'd get hired to watch a store, see kind of how things are run, how things are going, potentially pop up as like a surprise shopper to just, out of the blue, do an inspection, whatever. I also thought, oddly enough, that she could model, and more so not that, that because she's beautiful. We have seen a face reveal. I don't know if you've seen it yet. So she is very pretty. But it's more so that since she's invisible, all you're really getting is like the clothes or the product being worn. So I felt like it would be, a My Hero twist on modeling, that there is a model in the photo, but all you're focused on is the clothing, if that makes sense.
I think the only thing I would say with the spy is that her bubbly personality would actually work best, because you wouldn't think she's a spy, since a spy gets to wear 100 billion different hats. So you would think she's not a threat if you were a different, like, in government agency.
That's fair.
That'd be the only thing. Next up, we got 4 left, and these two are back to back. We got Mr. Bakugo himself. What do you have for him?
Okay, so Bakugo's personality is a bit explosive, kind of tying in with his quirk. He's very energized, very pumped, very serious about whatever he's doing, and he wants to be the best. So I wanted to keep something that would keep him competitive. And my first thought was actually, I think he would be an extreme sports athlete. Like, he'd probably do crazy stuff. Like, I'm not sure exactly which sport, but he would do anything and everything he could to get his adrenaline going, making sure that he's the best. He'd probably, win the X Games for 20 years in a row, whatever the hell he does. Like, that's the first thing that I thought of for him. Mm-hmm. And the secondary thing that I thought of for him, because we've seen him show an interest in this on more than one occasion, I think he'd actually be a pretty good chef. He'd be like my hero, Gordon Ramsay.
Okay. I like that. My first thing with Bakugo, the very first sentence I wrote, anything he wants, period.
That's true. He's good at everything. That was the other frustrating thing about him, was like, he could literally do anything.
But from his masterful performances in season 5 and leading that team and knowing his team's strength, I have him being the leader of the My Hero Academia SEAL Team 6.
As long as Midoriya isn't on SEAL Team 6 too, He'd be great.
No, Midoriya is not on the SEAL team. That is not the job. When I get to Midoriya, but no, it's just the way I saw him lead that team and now he's all about flawless victories. He would make sure that none of his teammates would get hurt.
That's true. That's a good one. That's a really good one. I only brought up Midoriya saying that, SEAL teams generally have to be stealth. Midoriya's, freaking breathes wrong and Bakugo's going to blow up on him. I don't care if they're on the SEALs. Like, he would blow up on him.
Well, you brought him up. The main character of the show, Midoriya. What do you got for him?
Midoriya? Okay, so I actually went kind of the idea of maybe if he had never gotten a quirk, I think he would have become a police officer. I think he would have become a police officer because he wants to help people, because he wants to keep them safe. Obviously, as we've already discussed, the police officers in My Hero don't have as much of an active role as the heroes. But if he would have truly completely been quirkless, that's the next best thing. Or I felt like he would have been best friends with Hatsume and learning how to make support gears, being a support tech for heroes. I also thought I kind of had a little sidebar for him. In his spare time, he'd probably have like a hero themed podcast where he'd just kind of go over and analyze all the different heroes, their strengths, not necessarily their weaknesses, but just kind of fanboy over all of them on the internet in his spare time.
Okay. So the stuff you just said for the last one, that podcast is good, yeah, but I actually used that same stuff but for a different job and hired. I have Midoriya working for the My Hero Academia Bureau of Counterterrorism. And the reason I have Midoriya working there is just for the stuff you just said. People forget that Midoriya was able to analyze heroes' moves and stuff to the T when he was writing in the notebook very heavily in the first couple seasons, and he brought it back a bit in season 5. So his ability to analyze that stuff, I could see him working in I guess the United Heroes World Nation too, whatever their counterterrorism committee is, and heroes coming there hey,
he'd also be good at threat assessment just in general, not even necessarily counterterrorism, just threat assessment across the board.
Yep. So that field, they would send him stuff and then he analyzes that, gives them the results and all that. So I definitely thought in the counterterrorism, threat assessment, that's where I had Midoriya going.
I do feel like I have to say that, all of these career options are for Midoriya if being Batman is not an option. So, because I feel honestly, when I first started watching My Hero, I thought that's what was going to happen. It was going to be no, kid, you can still be a hero. And then he basically becomes Batman.
Yeah, unfortunately, he didn't really start training till he met All Might. And then his, these heroes have their public addresses just all over the world. And
right.
Next week, two more. Next, we have Mineta.
Your fave.
My fave.
Great boy.
Little great boy. So I actually had 2, and 2 of them are connected. But the first one, which I said nothing was off limits job-wise, Mineta, who's actually one of the top 10 smartest people in Class 1A, which people don't forget. I have him creating the My Hero Academia's version of OnlyFans. That is the job. I mean, he would create it. It'd be the dude's smart, and it'd be successful. I mean, obviously, we see how successful it is in the real world. So I have him creating that, and then the other thing I did have him is going big into grape juices and jelly creation, making all these different types of jelly, making not Play-Doh, but new sticky stuff with his thing. But the OnlyFans thing, I actually think he would be the tied for the richest person on my thing when it'd be all said and done with that.
That's fair. Honestly, okay, when you reiterated that nothing was off the table, my mind went somewhere different because my first thought with Mineta went somewhere, I don't want to say dark, but
porn director?
Yes, that's exactly what it was. But I didn't put that because I was no, I'm going to be nice because he's Martin's favorite.
I mean,
so I actually I think the OnlyFans fits way better, so I would totally change my answer. But I actually thought maybe Mineta would make a really good photographer because he obviously is very enthralled by the female form. And he would do his utmost to be able to show off the best aspects of that form for whatever. It could be, you know, fashion editorials, it could be just general advertisements, just his own personal whatever. I will say I don't necessarily think he's going to be one of the photographers that gets the whole like scandal that he's being touchy. I will say I don't think that'll happen. But my second backup for him was also thinking in that he is very intelligent. I wondered if he might, you know, start a blog about, you know, the female heroes or just anything in general that he was very passionate about.
The My Hero Academia version of like a Cosmopolitan or
yes,
like Playboy and all that jazz. Yeah, I mean, those are good things too. I just thought of like what times we're in now, and OnlyFans is what it is now, a huge thing that most people are considering that like that's going to be their first job. And he's so smart in the fact that dude ranked 9th on the midterm. So to put that in perspective, people, he ranked ahead of Uraraka and Tokiyami.
Yeah.
So dude is, as they said in the show, it doesn't help that he's super smart and a perv. Like that combination is the worst because the dude is legit smart. And
right.
So they're like, and I think it was Mina who said, man, your persona only works if you were like the dumbest person in the class, but you're in the top 10.
Right. Because people could like, because there's a tendency to write off like perverted behavior if somebody's like not as intelligent. Because a lot of people have the idea that, you know, the higher intelligence you are, the less, you know, your thinking would be quote unquote dirty or in the gutter, whatever. That's just not necessarily the case in the world in general. But yeah, it's just also kind of the trope, isn't it? That especially when characters are perverted, they usually are not the smartest in the series.
Yep, that is true. Seat number 20, the
last but not least,
Vice Rep, your girl Momo. What do you have her doing?
Okay, so I actually went off of kind of like with what I did with Sato, in the sense that he's had to like develop a certain skill to use his quirk. Momo has to do a lot of studying. She's also one of the most intelligent, you know, characters in Class 1A so far in the show. Obviously, she's not the smartest, but I feel like she'd be like a chemistry professor. That she would be somewhere in the sciences. She's also shown that she's a good teacher, so I felt like being a professor, being a teacher would be a good fit for her. I also had a random kind of thought, but I thought she might make a really good food critic because of her discerning taste in that like special lofty tea. Also, since her family's wealthy, a lot of times when you have a more affluent upbringing, you have a more diverse and discerning like palate. So I thought maybe she would venture into that world for fun or something if she didn't actually want to be super studious and be a chemistry professor.
Got you. So, you know, it's funny how like, because Momo was the second person, because the list I had like written down, it went from like class rep Ida to second class rep Momo to like third person Midoriya because he's the main character. But then like Momo is always a hot topic on the L7C podcast because you love her so much.
Love her.
You love her, and then things go very south show wise, and then she disappoints and you get mad, and then I get super like, especially on the last one, there was a lot of people where I put her 5th and I could have put her last, but with her, well, first one I had, she makes tea. Like she loves tea. She could be like a tea creator, all that jazz. The other one that we did, we're just going to throw that out. Obviously, Momo, she could be a model. If she wanted to be the My Hero Academia OnlyFans model, she'd make billions of quadrillions of dollars. Let's just call it what it is. My thing that I stuck to mix all of her stuff together and to actually continue to connect all the people of Class 1A because of her wealth I have her being, and not the bad parts of this woman, I have her being like the My Hero Academia Kim Kardashian, where she is in a whole bunch of different businesses, and she's smarter than Kim Kardashian, but she's smart, she's very pretty, she has the money. I also have her being the one who's gives the startup money to a lot of the people, a lot of the people on this job, like the people, the nightclub, the dance studio, like those ones, the karate stuff. So she starts those all up and they're all working together. And then that money's going back to her. So she's like the founder of most of my group stuff. But if she wanted to make tea, she'd be fine. If she wanted to be just a model, which she already was shown on those commercials or whatever, that internship she was doing in season 2, that'd be fine. If she did Monetta's OnlyFans service, she'd be in the top 1%, 0.1%, the very top. Like, but I have her being the Kim Kardashian / founder of a lot, startup person of a lot of these people with My Hero Academia stuff.
That's a good point. That is a really good point. She can do, I mean, she's kind of like Bakugo in that she could really do anything she puts her mind to. She's just not naturally like gifted like Bakugo is, that she's great at everything right away. Mm-hmm. That's the only difference.
That was it for class 1A. They did on like my list when I pulled up all the people, they had like honorary person, my girl Ari. And I was just like, well, when she becomes an adult, she's going to be the lead. If quirks were still, if she can use it, she's going to be the leading doctor on the planet.
For sure. She's going to be recovery girl like 7.0.
Oh, yeah. Easy. Andrea, anything else on the class 1A? What jobs would they be if they couldn't be heroes?
I actually thought about and then decided not to. But I wanted to know if you might have thought about something for Eraserhead, like outside of being a teacher, obviously, since he's a teacher under being a hero. But if he wasn't either of those things, what do you think he would want to do other than sleep?
Social worker.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, or own a cat cafe.
Or own a cafe. Yep, that's what I would do. Andrea, go ahead, say some. We're done with the pod. Get your words in, and then I'll close it out.
Well, I was actually going to ask you, what are we doing next month? Because it's your turn to pick. So.
Technically, it would be your turn because I picked 2 in a row. But I mean, I can.
Dang it!
I know it took you a bit for this one. I do have ideas that we can choose from that we can talk about a little bit after we're done, but I do have some if you do not, because I was like, oh, if she doesn't want to think, so I need to have something in the
fluffy,
something in the back burner. But I do have some things. So
okay, then we shall discuss. And thank you everybody for listening. I kind of would like to know if we might have missed something for somebody, or if you like strongly disagree with anything either of us picked for anybody. I'm very curious what people would think as to our picks, especially some of yours, because you are extremely crafty and creative in this one, Martin. I'm taken aback and super surprised in a good way. But yeah, just thanks for, agreeing to do my idea for this one. I'm actually kind of proud of it. And yeah, again, thanks everybody for listening.
No, it was a really good idea. It was so good in the fact that I wish class 1B was featured more, because I'd like to do that with them too, but that's hard to do with them barely being featured and whatnot. But it was a very good idea, very clever. I've never heard any My Hero person talking about like what jobs they would have in normal life, so that was a really good pick on you. But thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Thank you, Andrea, for being our My Hero enthusiast. We will be back next month as we are charging along. It's already April. Next month when we're back is May. Sooner or later, we're going to get closer to season previews of season 6, where we have to preview season 6 and remind everyone where we left off in season 5, and remind people as we're doing these happy, sometimes serious one, there is a war coming in the anime. So that is on the horizon. But with that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Signing out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.